Ladies and gentlemen, what you see before you on your screen is the God Pod, but it is also a pictograph in the form of pictography of the book of Genesis. So, I am going to prove that to you within the next 9 minutes. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. What you see before you on your screen is a series of pictographs inside what I call the God Pod. And let me explain to you by the proper definition of a pictograph before we go any further. A pictograph is in fact also called a pictogram, or pictogram with 2 M's and an E, or an ideogram that conveys its meaning through its pictorial resemblance to a physical object. It means it shows you a story by using several pictures in combination with one another. That's my interpolation of the definition, but that's very true and correct to the actual meaning of the word pictograph. Then the definition goes on to state, pictographs are often used in writing and graphic systems in which the characters are to be considerable extent pictorial in appearance. It means, what that means is when something is very complex and words are not able to describe the complex structure of the idea or premise because of the necessity to extrapolate those meanings in different languages, a pictograph is used. Like a stop sign is used because of its shape throughout the world, or a picture of a man on a bathroom door as opposed to a woman. Those are pictographs. If it was just a picture of a man, it's a picture. But once you incorporate more than one item into the picture, it becomes a pictograph. And moving back to the screen, a pictograph is also, when you have multiple pictures, a form of what is known as pictography. Is a form of writing which uses representational pictorial drawings. Multiple drawings, multiple representations is called pictography. So the God Pod that I showed you moments ago is actually pictography. I can call it many different names because most people don't know what they mean. There are actual meanings for these things. These things also are represented as cuneiform to some degree or extent, and also hieroglyphic writing. The history of symbols and pictography and hieroglyphs is something that you need to look up in the Encyclopedia Britannica. But suffice it to say that this is a form of pictography. And what you see is the book of Genesis associated on the reverse of the $1 bill in the form of pictography. This is going to be proven momentarily by placing each sword up on the screen, and we're going to back it off for a little bit, and we're going to go in the beginning. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. So now we need to go back to the picture. Heaven and earth. This is a representation of earth. So God created heaven and earth. The heaven is a representation of the clouds and the mist and the dew that surrounds the apex of the pyramid. The word heaven is not associated only with the stars. The word heaven is associated with the skies and the rain and the clouds that exist above the earth. So in the beginning, God created the heavens, or heaven and earth, that sets under the base of the Great Pyramid. That's a fact, ladies and gentlemen. Genesis chapter 1 verse 2. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Okay, and the earth was without form and void. and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Very complicated. In my book, it takes 50 pages to describe the first 17 verses of Genesis. So don't expect it all to happen in 10 minutes. The earth was without form. Notice that the earth is in the shape of a crescent. It's not, the word form usually represents a circular object. Form. Or a complete object, the word form. It could be a complete square, could be a complete rectangle, or it could be a complete circle or compass. But the earth represented in Genesis is without form because it's a picture of a crescent at the bottom of the pyramid, thus satisfying part of verse number 2. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. That's very complex also, but this is the deep. The part at the base underneath the banner is the deep. Why do I call it the deep? I'll tell you. This is a body of water. Body 1, body 2, body 3, body 4. This is the surface of the water behind the pyramid. However, this is the bottom of the water. This is the deepest part of the water. Satisfying, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Darkness was upon the face of the deep because this banner blocks the light that comes from the Lord. This banner blocks the light of this part of the water, therefore making this the deep and also dark, because theoretically no light is reaching the bottom of the water because the banner is stopping the water. Ladies and gentlemen, believe what you will. This is over 50 pages in my book, and I describe it detail for detail. Of course, the book's name is Angels on the Ark by Michael Fazio, and in the book you can press any of the buttons to preview the book, and it will bring you to, for instance, about the author, born and raised in Howard Beach, owner of Barge Dragon, deck and dock builder, and the preliminaries, and then you can move through the book. All of this information is in the book itself, which is 1,990 pages. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Angels on the Ark by Michael Fazio, a revolutionary new book. Now moving back to Genesis 2, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Now we get into pictography. The Spirit of the Lord God. If the Lord God is represented as the all-seeing eye, which I say is a portal from heaven and the light of the Lord God itself, if this is the Lord God and His Spirit is represented as light, then this is the Spirit of the Lord. And the Lord God's Spirit was upon the waters. Notice how the radiance comes down from the radiance of the Lord God's eye. The Spirit of the Lord is radiating upon the waters. In the book of Genesis, verse 2, and the Spirit of the God moved upon the face of the water. The Spirit of God, the Spirit, the light of God, moved upon the face of the water. Moving on to verse 3. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Okay, even though we spoke about the light, the book of Genesis is not necessarily in order for the pictograms on the reverse of the $1 bill. There are only so many ways that you can represent a concept, and because they seem to be out of order, they're not. However, going back to verse 3, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Okay, let there be light. This is the light that God said, "Let there be." This is the light that comes from the portal. This is the portal from heaven And God said, let there be light. Genesis verse 3. And there was light. Going to Genesis verse 4 now. And God saw the light that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God saw the light that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. This is the light. This is the good light. This is heaven. This represents heaven. This represents good. This represents God. The darkness is the earth, because this is the manly domain of the world. Earth is not heaven. Heaven is supposed to be associated with light. This pyramid represents an earthly structure. He separated the light from the darkness. And the separation spoken about in verse 4 is this separation, which is 0.084 inches. This separation is how the Lord separated the light from the darkness. That satisfies verse 4 of the book of Genesis. Whether you choose to believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, that is how pictography works. And at this point, ladies and gentlemen, would you please rate my video? Up or down is good with me. And ladies and gentlemen, I need to get a bigger camera.